Hello, internet friends. How are you? How are you doing? I am so pleased to be here to announce people that I respect and adore. This is the Unity Essentials session. We're going to teach you how to make some stuff with the Unity. It's going to be incredible. Um, we are joined by some amazing presenters who legitimately have mentored me in doing things. So I'm excited for them to mentor you. We've got, I'm going to mess your name up, Krystel. I'm sorry, Krystel Theuvenin, educator for the Urban Arts Partnership, and Joy Horvath, the senior instructional designer at Unity Technologies. And they're going to take you through creating a basic game in Unity using all the tools available at your disposal. I will be in here moderating. And if we jump to that next slide, you'll see my name is Thomas Winkley. I am the live learning content producer at Unity Technologies. And also another person that I absolutely adore, Alex Grady, our senior program manager on the education side, will be here helping me moderate for quite a bit. So quick notes for all of y'all. I can't reply to your Q&As via text in the Q&A. However, if you get stuck, if you have questions, please type your question in the Q&A. I will copy it, I will repaste it in the chat, or we will answer it live for you. So if you get stuck, let us know. All right, that's all the housekeeping. That's all the fun stuff. Let's, without further ado, bring on two phenomenal women.
Hi.
Hello. Thomas went quiet there for a second, but hello, everybody. Welcome to our workshop. I am Joy, and joining me is Krystel, this direction.
Hi, I'm Krystel. Wait, you're that direction.
We've been having a little bit of technical difficulty figuring out our angles with flipping and stuff, but luckily we know Unity a whole lot better than camera angles.
Definitely. So we're going to go ahead and for the session, we want you guys to make the most of it. So if you get lost, we're going to be using the Unity 2020 LTS, and you can follow along, or you don't have to follow along, and you can just watch. But if you are ready to follow along, this is what you're going to do. You're going to see a red stop sign, which is going to let you guys know that you need to watch, and then a green thumbs up that's going to let you know that you guys can go ahead and do it yourself. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. But first, let's show you exactly what we're going to be making today. So we're going to be making this cool little pachinko style game where we're going to have a ball that falls all the way from the top, goes all the way down to the bottom, goes through this cool bouncing around, and then you get some points. And we're going to have you guys build that out to your desktop. So it's going to be super exciting. So here's the agenda. First, we're going to create your project. We're going to create the player next. We're going to make the player dynamic, create the goals, create the obstacles, make it more dynamic, add some UI, make the player move, figure out how scoring works, and then build it so that it actually plays on your desktop. So we're going to start off with creating our new project and importing assets. And I'm going to throw it over to Joy so she can go ahead and show you.
Thank you. Just as a note, you may have seen in the chat, but Thomas went ahead and added a link that will give you access to the assets that we're going to be using to follow along. It's very small. It's only about 5K, so you should be able to download it in a hot second as I'm doing the demo. So if you do want to follow along, be sure to get those assets. That's going to give you the head up, and you're going to be able to follow along precisely with what I do. But with that in mind, let's create in Unity. And we're going to start on my vast and empty desktop with the Unity Hub in the center. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on the Unity Hub. And this is going to open up said Unity Hub in just a moment. If you have a slightly different version of the Unity Hub, do not worry. It works the exact same way. So we are going to pay attention to the fact that we started up in the Projects tab. Your projects may look slightly different than mine. You may not have a list at all. I do a lot of work in Unity, therefore I have a very long list of projects. We are going to direct our attention to this blue button that says New. If you are using the other version of the hub, I believe it says Create New Project. And if you have multiple versions of Unity downloaded for any reason, you'll want to just click on this dropdown and make sure that you're selecting Unity 2020.3. After the 3, the number doesn't matter. Just make sure that it's 2020.3. That's our long-term support version of the editor. And then you'll be prompted with this pop-up. We want to make sure that we're using the 3D version of our templates, and we're going to name our project. I'm going to call this Unity for Humanity, and then I'm going to type final because I've done a lot of demos. I want to make sure that I actually have the right version named. And then we're going to choose a location. I have a dedicated folder on my computer for Unity projects. If you don't, the desktop is a mighty fine place to put your first project. So go ahead and choose your location and then create. Boom, boom. And this will take just about a minute. It's actually doing its little loading thing on my other screen. So I'll pull the editor over once it is loaded up. But again, it just takes a minute to do. If this is the first time you've ever opened up Unity, it might take a little bit longer, but no worries. It will just open up when it's ready to go.
Those loading times always get you.
I will entertain you with my mouse moving slowly across the screen in a hypnotic way.
Ooh, that background though. Where's that background from?
Wow. This would actually be more impressive if the Unity loading thing was up because it was the same. It's still Unity Lodo stuff. But here we go. Welcome to Unity. So this is the Unity editor. It may look a little overwhelming to start with, but do not worry. It will become second nature and familiar ground for you soon enough. Before I turn you loose to do these steps yourself, we need to import those assets that you downloaded from the chat. And to do that, we're going to come down to the bottom half of the editor where it says Project, this tab right here. We're going to right click in this open gray area. And we are going to go to Import Package, Custom Package. And then we're going to navigate to wherever you downloaded. I put mine on the desktop. And I'm going to go to the starting assets and just select this and click Open and pop over the import package that you will see. You'll see that we're going to be importing two folders. One is actually a scenes folder that we already have. So we're just going to be adding a new file into that folder. Then we're going to be importing a brand new scripts folder, and that has 3 scripts in it. That's all there is to start with. So we're just going to hit the import button and it's going to import. And there we go. Our project is ready to begin. So I'm going to turn it back to you so you could actually go through the steps yourself and prepare Unity for adventure.
And if we could just get the slides up so you guys can see the steps, so you can walk right through them. But it's a pretty natural process that after a while I forget that there's a process to it. But yeah, so step number 1, you're going to open up your Unity Hub. Step number 2, you're going to click New Project, which in this screenshot, this is a different version of the Unity Hub, so it might look a little bit different for you. You're going to click on the 3D core default template, and then name your project, save it somewhere. And then we're going to import our assets over here. We're going to right-click to the projects folder, right-click, import package, and then custom package. And if you have any questions, please let us know. We'll be more than happy to help you.
So as Krystel previously mentioned, this is kind of how we're going to be doing things. I'm going to do a little section of a demo, then we're going to come back. You're going to get the instructions up on the page. You're going to do your bit, and then we'll bounce back and forth. And yeah, if any questions do come up, we've got an entire collection of people who will be able to answer them for you. And in the meantime, we'll just entertain ourselves.
Yes, definitely. I think also it's worth mentioning that there is also a menu bar at top that says assets. You can also go up there and click import package and custom package because there's so many ways of doing it.
Yes, many paths up the same mountain.
Yes. Cool. So how many, we want to give people another like 30-ish seconds or?
Yeah, we'll give them another minute or so. Cool. Is there a, can you guys give thumbs up? That's something that I should have asked.
Oh, smiley faces. Can we get smiley faces in the chat?
Can we just get smiley faces in general just as moral support?
Yay, I'm going to put one in the chat. I'm going to go one in there. Yay.
Yay.
Smiley face. Woo. Oh, I'm so excited. Oh, that makes me happy. Oh.
Look at all the people.
Oh. I don't know if that's nerve-wracking or exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So it looks like a lot of people are either entertaining us or are ready.
Can this just be the rest of the workshop? No, I'm kidding.
Just vibing with chat. Yes, I'm super excited.
Just sitting and vibing with chat. Yeah. All right. So welcome to the world of Unity. It's all very exciting. So it also can feel a little bit overwhelming if this is the first time you've really spent any time with the editor. And we're very aware of that, but I want to promise you that it's not as scary as it looks. We're just going to go step by step. So the first thing let's do is actually go ahead and open up that new project, not new project, my apologies, that new scene that we made note of that we were importing. So down back here in the project tab, we're going to double click on that scenes folder. And I'm actually going to come down to the bottom right-hand corner of the project tab. There's this little slidey guy. I'm going to slide him all the way to the left, and that just gives me the ability to see things in list format. That's just easier for me. I can read the whole thing. And we have two things here. The first one is sample scene. That's what comes with default whenever you open up a new version of Unity. We actually see that this is what's open right now. That's boring. We don't need it. We're going to double click on starting scene. And that is going to open up this mysterious monolith. What could this possibly be?
What is it?
What is it? I don't know. Let's find out. The way that we're going to find out is we're going to learn how to navigate around in the scene view. So that is this big open area in the center part of Unity, and this is where we're going to be doing most of our work in the editor. So this is actually a 3D work environment, and so we need to navigate around in it a little bit differently than different programs that are more 2D based. Now, the way that we navigate around in Unity is through one key on your keyboard and then your mouse. So on your keyboard, you're going to press Alt, and then you're going to use your left mouse button to drag and rotate around in the scene. And now, if you remember back to that sample video that you just watched, this may be looking slightly familiar, but let's confirm our suspicions. Holding Alt on the keyboard and right mouse button dragging and zooming out, we have the ability to zoom, and our pachinko play area is revealed. So we have one last control that we have access to, and that's Alt and middle mouse button or scroll wheel click to pan around. And that's how we navigate around in a 3D view. So again, Alt, left mouse button drag for rotate, Alt, right mouse button drag for zoom, and then Alt, middle mouse button drag for pan. And if you do happen to have a scroll wheel, bonus, it also zooms. So this may feel a little funky at first. It did take me personally a long time to get used to working in 3D space, but have confidence. You're going to be able to navigate around quickly and easily in no time. And as I'm working through in these demos, I'll be sure to just make a note of the fact that I'm holding Alt and left mouse button clicking and so on and so forth to help get you in the mindset of working in 3D space. So we have our 3D space. We have our play area. We now know the scene view, and that means that we know 50% of the things that we have on screen. We have our project view. It shows us the contents of everything that we've imported and other stuff. We have our scene view. This is where we're going to be doing our 3D jig and doing cool 3D stuff. And now let's learn about the other aspects of Unity by creating the next step of our pachinko game, which is our player. We've got a play area, but no player. It's not a very fun game yet. So let's go ahead and create a player. Now, our player is going to be a game object, and there just so happens to be a game object drop down right here at the top of Unity. So we're going to click on that, and we're going to go to 3D object, and we are going to choose sphere because our player is a little pachinko sphere. So I'm going to click on that, and a couple things happen all at once. So starting in the scene view, we now have this weird little arrow guy, and then we have the outline of a circle. But then over here on the left side of our screen, under the tab hierarchy, we have a new entry in this list, and it's called sphere. And currently it is highlighted as sphere, and that's because it's giving us the option to name it. So now that we have the opportunity, let's just go ahead and name this player so we don't forget. And now we can pay a little bit more attention to what's going on in the scene view. If we use our movement keys, so holding Alt, and I'm going to right mouse button to zoom in, and then Alt and left mouse button to rotate around, we can see that we actually have a sphere. And this weird arrow thing that is on our sphere is actually our move widget. So if we left click and drag on one of these arrows, we could scoot our sphere around. There we go. We can see now that our player sphere is in fact a sphere, and it exists in the scene. But this move widget actually appeared when we highlighted something in the hierarchy. If I go ahead and click on the play area, you could see that now the move widget has shifted over to the play area. And hopefully this kind of gives you a sense of relationship between the hierarchy and the scene view. The easiest way to think about the hierarchy is as a table of contents for the scene view. Everything that exists in the scene view is listed out in the hierarchy. Everything that is listed out in the hierarchy exists somewhere in the scene view. So it's a one-to-one relationship. Now, for a scene as small as this one, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but trust me, as things start getting more complicated, you're going to really be looking forward to the fact that you have a hierarchy. So I'm going to reselect my player, and I'm going to, holding Alt and right mouse button to zoom out, Alt and left mouse button to zoom, so I can, or to rotate, so I can actually see what's going on. I'm going to use this move widget to actually go up and move my player up to the top of the play area. And as I'm doing this, you might notice out of the periphery of your vision that some stuff is happening over here on the right-hand side of the screen. So I'm going to move this around, and you can see some numbers are changing up. So what's going on here? What's going on in this tab called the inspector? Why does it have all this stuff? And indeed, why does it look so different than it did before? Because when we first opened up Unity, it was blank. It was empty and boring. But as soon as we clicked on our player, either in the scene view or in the hierarchy, all this stuff appeared. Well, this stuff is actually a list of components that make up the object that we have selected in our scene view. So everything that you see listed here in the inspector are all of the components that make up the player. So we have the transform component, which defines where the object exists in the 3D space of our scene view, which is why when we move it around with the move widget, these values update. Just like we have a one-to-one relationship with our hierarchy and our scene view, we also have a one-to-one relationship with our object and our inspector. So if I went in here and I changed this value of X to 0, we could see that our sphere also changed its position as well. So this is exactly where our sphere exists in 3D space. Same is true as for rotation and scale. We'll visit those in more detail a little bit later on in our demo. Then the mesh filter and the mesh render actually make up the visibility of our object in the scene. Next is our sphere collider. This actually defines the physicality of our object. So the collider is the thing that prevents one object from passing through another. And then last but not least, we have a default material. Now, the material is what defines the surface quality of our objects in the scene. And right now we can see in the inspector it's listed as default. And sure enough, it has the same surface qualities as our play area, which makes it frankly kind of hard to see. So let's go ahead and change that by adding a custom material. And the place that we create our own custom things like materials actually happens in the project tab, which we're already familiar with. And because we like to keep things organized in Unity, whenever we create new things, we're going to create new folders for it to stay in. So I'm going to click on the assets folder, which is the top level of our folder structure. Then in this gray area, I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to this create option. And right up at the top is an option for folder. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to call this material. And now that my organizational needs are satisfied, I'm going to double click to go into the materials folder. And now I'm going to create the material to make my player look interesting. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to create. And about halfway-ish down this epic long list of things that you could make is the materials option. So we're going to click on that. And we're going to call this player because it's the player material. And whenever we have an object selected, even in the project, our inspector gives us all the details we need to know about it. And this seems like a lot, but don't worry, we're only going to be focusing on the first three: albedo, metallic, and smoothness. So the albedo is actually the surface color information about the material. So we're going to just click on this color swatch. And I'm just going to pick a color that I like. I like red, so we're going to go with that. Then metallic and smoothness do exactly what it sounds like. Metallic is going to define how metallic a material is. So I'm going to bump this all the way up to 1 because I like things looking really cool and shiny. I'm actually going to drag this up to show the preview. So see how this looks more metallic. And then smoothness defines how smooth the surface quality is. I'm going to also put this all the way up. So that's a big, nice, fancy looking material. And now here's the cool part. We've created our material. We just need to add it to our player. We don't need to do anything crazy to do that. It's literally just drag and drop. Unity is very big on its drag and drop functionality. So we're just going to left click and drop that right onto the player sphere. And there we go. Now you may have noticed that as I went and drag and drop, we get a preview of what the material would look like on any object that can accept the material. However, if you don't let go, it's just a preview. It's not going to apply. You're good. And that is now our player created with a really cool material. So we're going to turn you loose to do that step yourself. Doop, doop, doop.
Yeah, and if we could just have the presentation up so you guys can see the steps again. It's also cool because, like I said before, there are so many different ways of doing all of these steps. So you can go straight into the hierarchy and actually create the object, or you can just follow these instructions, go to game object, 3D object, and then sphere, and then rename it to player, which you can do one of two ways. You can either right click on it, double click on it, or go to inspector and change its name. And then if we move forward a little bit, the more complicated aspect of creating the material folder is right here. You go to the project window, right click, create folder, name it materials, then go in there, right click again, create material, and you'll be able to play around with your material over in the inspector. So this is obviously like a very basic way of creating materials. There's also people who hold jobs to make shaders that look really cool, and but they're basically materials. And yeah, it's super interesting, and you can do this process basically for any sort of shape that you're creating players for in your game. So it's super awesome. Yeah, it's super easy to use. The drag and drop feature also really cool, because you can also drag over to the name of the object in hierarchy to change its name as well, to change its color as well. So there's a lot of options for you however you learn, to makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, indeed. So we'll just give you a little bit more time to go through and create your player, without me blathering on about like the details of the inspector theory. It actually goes very quickly. So again, just go ahead and create your player and give yourself a cool material. And as a reminder, it doesn't have to look like mine. If you hate the color red, don't make your player the color red. Make it any color that you like, and feel free to have fun playing around with the metallic and smoothest values. Yes, color.
Yes, I think it's so much fun being able to see live how it does it. Also, if you guys want to, you can also drag the material and then edit the material while it's already on your player, so that you can see how different stuff looks. So if you want to see it in the play space as well, that's also fun.
Indeed. Very few things in Unity are locked down once you create it the first time. So you could always go through, and if halfway down the line you're like, you know what, I really don't like the color of my player, you can go back and change it. It's your world.
Your world.
It's your game.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and ask for smiley faces when you guys are ready.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You can kind of see some feedback, how everyone's doing, how everyone's feeling. Super fun.
Oh, there's a sandwich.
Sandwich. Feeling that one.
Yay!
Yeah. And while we're getting response from everybody, I think also another way of looking at the inspector is those are properties. Those are basically properties for your object. So if you're ever thinking about customization for a character in a video game, like, you're just seeing the back end of it, what it looks like in its raw form.
Yes. The secrets of the universe unveiled before your eyes.
Secret. God is secret. Okay, no. Awesome. So
cool. All right, let's get them down. Let's give them another 43 seconds, and then we'll move on to the next step.
Yeah. I hope you guys are enjoying this. It's going to be a cool, kind of interesting way of seeing how you can control Unity and create a player. First little game. Super fun. Yay! Yeah. I'm glad people like this. Aww.
Yay!
Oh,
Yay!
that makes me so happy.
Yeah, it's funny too, because it's one thing to, look at all the amazing, gigantic things that Unity can create, but at the end of the day, there are few things more satisfying than just spending an hour in the editor and coming out making a functioning game.
And then knowing the satisfaction that you did it with your own two hands, and it wasn't that hard. You did it.
All you guys.
You did it.
Yay!
Awesome.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next step. And before we do anything crazy, there is a rule in software of all kinds. And that rule is only save as much as you don't want to redo. I think I said that wrong. But anyway, the point of the matter is that saving is a thing, and it's very important. And there is no autosave feature in Unity. So now that we've gone through all the effort of creating our player, let's save before something terrible happens. So the way that we save our scene is this pretty much the same way that you save anything universally. So you can go over and go file save, or you can hit Command or Control S on your keyboard. Just remember, after every moment that you think, wow, that's awesome, make it a habit to immediately go Control S.
Control S is your best friend.
Yes, always do it. If you're proud, you should save it. Don't forget to save. So now that we have safely locked away our player and nothing bad will happen, let's go ahead and think about what we've accomplished so far. We have our play area. We have our player. That's awesome. And if we remember back to that sample that we were looking at, that video, our player will be moving back and forth across the screen, and then it'll drop, and it's going to drop when we left mouse button click, and then it'll pop back up to the top when we right mouse button click. So that's awesome. And that dropping must be using gravity, and that's great because Unity has a really cool physics system. So let's go ahead and playtest our game and see what we have done, and let's watch our ball drop. So in order to playtest our game, all we have to do is come up and press the play button at the top of the Unity editor, and that will take us to a new mode. And you'll notice that it'll shift over to a new tab called Game. But wait a minute, hold on. Expectations broken. What has occurred here? Why isn't my ball dropping? The answer to that is that while Unity does have an extremely robust physics system, and it's super cool and easy to use, it is not applied by default, because can you imagine what would happen if everything would always be at the mercy of gravity in your games? Not good things. It would be very, very bad. So what we need to do is actually tell Unity that we want a specific object in our scene to use physics. So we're going to get out of play mode. We're not going to be testing our game right now. So we're going to press the play button, and you'll notice right now when it's active, that button is highlighted. We're going to press play to get out of that. It'll bring us back to our scene view. The game view, by the way, is something that you could always look at, but we're going to be working in the scene view because the game view isn't active. You can't move around in it. And we're going to reselect our player. So in order to notify Unity, hey, Unity, I want our player to have access to physics, we need to add a component or a parameter. And we're already familiar with those concepts because we've seen them in the inspector. So for example, I referenced the transform component as being the thing that defines where our player is in 3D space. So there are all these components here. It stands to reason that the inspector has something to do with components, and maybe we could add components from it. And sure enough, at the very bottom of the inspector, we have this big ol' add component button. So we're going to click on the add component button, and we are going to... Unity always remembers my searches. Spoilers!
It knows.
We're going to use the search function, which is this search area right up at the top of the component drop down. And we're going to search for the term rigid body. And there are two here. We're making a 3D game, so we want to make sure to select the first one because the other one's for 2D. And when we add this component, you'll notice that it lists out all of these things that sound very physicsy. Mass, drag, angular drag, all those other terms that I definitely heard in science class and definitely didn't pay attention to. But the most important part is this option right here, which is a concept that I definitely do understand, and that is a checkbox for use gravity. With this component added, we have notified Unity that our player should be using gravity. So let's go ahead and test it. Let's go back up to the play button. Behold the wonders of science!
Magic!
Our ball has dropped! It's not magic, it's science. Or...
Right, science.
Science! Advanced enough that it's like magic, except it's just a ball dropping. Well, I'm excited about it, and I think you'll be too, because it's now your turn to go and add a rigid body component to your player so you too can be a magical scientist. Science.
Science, right? So go ahead and make sure that you do have, this is very important, that you have your, oh, Thomas, hello. Make sure that you have your player selected. Do not accidentally select anything else in hierarchy. Make sure you have your player selected, you click add component, and then search rigid body. Typically, if you just type RIG, it'll pop up automatically and it'll be at the top. But rigid body, and make sure that the use gravity box is checkmarked.
And I'm just seeing in the chat, Kaylin has asked if Isaac Newton had a Unity sphere fall on him for his discovery of gravity, and that is indeed true. Isaac Newton actually started using Unity around Unity 1.5. That's an interesting fact that you should definitely not check on the internet.
Definitely not.
Now, don't Google it, because we all know that Unity dropped the apple. That's how it worked.
That's how it works.
He was sitting with his coffee and his MacBook under the tree, and the apple fell on his head. That's exactly.
Of course he was using a Mac.
Of course he was. He's Sir Isaac Newton. It's an apple. That's how the company started. Steve Jobs told me when we were at coffee.
Like, this is...
So real quick before I get in trouble for breaking history, I just wanted to call something out that I saw in the chat. So Sean Benson made the point of you should change the play mode color in Unity as a pro tip. And so I just wanted to come on, say hello to everybody, and drop this link to the answers.unity.com on how you do that, because we're probably not going to have time to demo it today. That's it. That's the whole thing. Producer Tom, take me away.
Yeah. Or what I teach my students is play is play and play is stop. Never click pause. It's one of the easiest ways of learning that because I kept forgetting how to change the color of play mode, and it was just so pretty the way it is. Also, interestingly enough, there are different layouts for Unity. So if any of you are 3D pros who've used 3D programs before, sometimes you might want to change the layout. I personally use 2x3 because it lets you see the scene and the game at the same time, but sometimes for new users that's a little bit overwhelming, so you want to be able to see the change itself. But you remember, there's so many different ways of doing this. It's so exciting.
Unity is hyper customizable. You could do anything that you want in the editor except, well, break the editor, but you could do that too. The sky's the limit as far as Unity creation goes.
I should apologize. Apparently I've committed pause slander. I do not mean to slander pause. I'm sorry.
Pause does have its space. It also, we also have the step forward for scripting reasons. But for beginners, for those just starting, the play button is the sacred tool that one must remember to unclick.
Yes, because if you don't, and I think we're going to go over it in a little bit, but if you do make any changes to your game while the button is playing, while the play button is on, it will not save the changes. You'll be able to test it out, so you'll be able to see like, oh, something beforehand before you commit. But then once you stop, Unity is going to be like, cool, I reset. So just remember that. And I just saw the best line on the planet in the chat. The skybox is the limit. The limit.
That is my new personal. That's what I'm going to take to heart. There is no limit. The skybox is the limit.
Cool.
And it's making it deeper because procedural. Yeah, let's do more stuff.
Yeah. We're going to go ahead and we're going to reuse existing objects now. Ooh.
Yes. Alrighty. So hopefully you guys were able to go through and add that rigid body in. It's nice and easy to do. So the next step is we need to think about the next components that go into creating this game. We've got our play area. We've got the ball that drops. Now we need something for the ball to drop into. And we're going to create a series of goals. I'm going to create 5. You can create as many as you like. Again, the skybox is the limit. Now, my new favorite phrase. But
need a shirt.
Need a shirt. Somebody get on it. Designers, quickly. Dazzle. Anyway, so we are going to create the goals, and at the bottom of our game is where the goals are going to be, and they're just little boxes. And the thing is, we actually already have something that looks like a little box on our screen. It is the play area. The cool thing about Unity is that it allows you to reuse components. This is actually one of the best parts about Unity for people like me who are deeply lazy. My spirit animal is the sloth. So I'm actually going to take the play area, I'm going to reuse it to create the goals. And I'm going to do that by using the duplicate function. So if you select the play area in your hierarchy, it's going to select everything that makes up the play area. And I'm going to hit Control, if you are on a Mac, it's Command, and then D on the keyboard. And that makes a duplicate of the play area. Now, we see that play area parentheses 1 has appeared in our hierarchy, but it looks like nothing's happened in our scene view. But in fact, the duplicate is just sitting right on top of our original. So I'm going to hold Alt and left mouse button click to drag around. And then I'm going to use the Move widget and just drag that out. And you can see, sure enough, we do have a second copy of our object. It was just in the same space. I'm going to come over to the inspector this time to rename this so I don't forget. So I'm going to change this from play area to goal. There it is. And now we got to do something about this because this goal is just as big as the play area. That's not doing us any favors. So we're going to use the next widget in order to change the scale of our goal. So if you hit R on the keyboard, or if you come over to this little icon right beneath the game object dropdown, you can click on that as well. This is our scale widget. It looks very similar to our move widget, which by the way is W on the keyboard. So you can see that we have these 3 directional lines, but rather than arrows, hit R to go back, we have these squares. And when we left click and drag on one of these squares, our object will scale in the axis of whatever we are dragging on. So that's great. But if we want to uniformly scale, and I'm just hitting Control or Command Z to go undo. If we want to universally scale this, we could actually left click and drag on this center box, doop, 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 and now it universally scales down. So I'm going to alternate between using the scale tool and the move tool in order to scoot this down to the bottom of my play area. Now this is definitely still too big, so I'm going to scale this down a little bit more. Again, I'm pressing R on the keyboard to scale down, and I'm just zooming out with my scroll wheel, and I'm kind of observing the general size. I think that's about right. Now, if I want to very quickly get back to my object, because I'm a little bit far away, I could hit F on the keyboard, and it'll zoom right in. There we go. I'm going to hit W. I'm going to move it down to the bottom and actually get it down on the floor. Everybody do the dinosaur. That's an old reference at this point. I'm sorry. So there we go. I've got it sitting right there. Now, that height and width-wise is looking about right to me, but it's very narrow. So I'm going to hit R on the keyboard, and I'm going to scale it out along this blue axis to increase the depth. I'm going to keep adjusting it. There we go, until it looks about right. And I think that is about right proportionally. It is indeed. And that's great. All right, goal. Wait. So the problem with this goal is that it's a little unfair because it has this top here. So we need to do something about this. Oop, my Alt key got stuck for a second. So this top here kind of puts a damper on the whole game because it eliminates the chance of winning any points. So we're going to actually repurpose this top into something that will be used to detect whether or not the player actually accesses the goal. And so we can move this object around. You'll notice that when I clicked on the top specifically, the drop down, the roll down here for the goal actually opened up and it revealed the individual pieces that make up this group. So I can move this top around. I could actually push this down here more towards the center of the goal. And I want to reuse this. So I mentioned before that colliders affect the physicality of an object. So if my hands were in Unity, oh, you can't see me right now. Look at your hands. Look at your hands and observe yourself. If you slap your hands together, your hands don't actually, oh, hello, everybody. Your hands don't go through each other. They actually stop. If we were in Unity, my hands would be preventing each other from passing through because they have colliders attached. So that's one aspect of what colliders do. However, there is another component there is another aspect of colliders, and that is to, rather than prevent things from passing through, is to note whether something has passed through. And you'll notice that in the box collider option right here, there's something called is trigger. So a trigger is the part of the collider that will detect whether or not an object has passed through it. And we're going to need that to check whether or not our player has fallen through into the goal. So we're going to click on the is trigger option for the box slider. And then we don't want to forget what this is all about. So we're going to come up to the top of the inspector and we're going to change the name of this object from top to trigger. And now we need to adjust its scale so it actually looks like it is inside the goal itself, because we want basically to define the space where the goal is going to be considered valid. So this will become a little bit more clear a little bit later on, but we're just doing the prep work now. I'm going to hit R on the keyboard and I'm going to adjust this trigger object so it looks like it's sitting inside the goal. So I'm going to make it about halfway up. I'm going to push it right there. And there we go. So that looks like it's a little container. And when our ball drops into this area, we're going to be able to get those points. The thing is, though, is that if our ball drops into this trigger right now, we're not going to be able to see it. It's going to disappear. It's going to look like it's just dropped into a vat of milk. And while that in itself could make an interesting game, it's not what we're going for. So we want to make this trigger invisible. Now, we touched on this very briefly, but the mesh renderer is the thing that contributes to the visibility of the object in our scene. And you'll notice that there's a checkbox here next to the mesh renderer. If we uncheck that, boop, then it disappears. Now it's still active. We can actually see the green outline of the collider here, and everything is still on and working. It's just, it's ghostly and invisible now, which is suitable for spooky season and also suitable for our spooky season. So our trigger is now set up. Our goal is almost perfect, but we want to have some kind of indication of a score value on our goals. So we're going to go ahead and add a new object to the goal group. So Krystel actually mentioned before that there are many ways to create objects in Unity. And another way that we could do it is directly from the hierarchy. And if we right click over an object, whatever we create will become a child of the object. So we can actually see that these objects that are slightly indented, these are children of the goal object. So we're going to create another one. So we're going to right click over the word goal, and we're going to go to 3D object, and we're going to select text mesh pro. This is going to prompt a TMP importer to pop up. Just click on import TMP essentials. It'll only take a second to do this. That will gray out. You could close that, and you could see, it's a little hard to see right now, but something has appeared. And I'm trying to get the right angle, but we will change the color very quickly. This text is a 3D component in Unity, and if you scroll down in the inspector, we have a text editor. This should look just like you would recognize from Word or Google Docs. So immediately, what I'm looking for is the color. So I'm going to come over to this vertex color swatch. I'm going to change that to black. So you can see sample text. Behold, the wonder of sample text. I don't care about sample text. I'm going to make this 100.
Oh, poor sample text.
Poor sample text. We hardly knew ye, but 100, that's a big number. I like that number. But you can come in and you can modify this just like you would any other text editor. So you can make the font bold, you could up the size, you could change the alignment. And anything that you do, you'll see propagate over. And I'm just going to move this down and shift this over like so. So now we know the value of this goal. Now, this is something that we're going to modify as we create copies of this. But for right now, this is our base goal. So what I'm going to do is I've decided that I want 5 goals in my scene. So I'm going to select this goal, and I'm just going to hit Control D 4 more times. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 5 goals total. Again, just like before, they're sitting on top of each other. I'm going to move and align and scale these while you guys are working on yours, so you don't have to be bored by my design process. But before I turn you loose, you'll notice that our hierarchy is starting to get a little bit disorganized. We have a lot of copies of things. So I'm going to just make a top level group for all of our goals. To do that, I'm going to select the top goal, hold Shift, select the bottom goal to highlight everything in the list. Then I'm going to right click, and I'm going to choose Create Empty Parent. And then that creates a new object called Game Object. I'm just going to come over here and rename this to Goals. And there we go. Now all of my goals are grouped. Now I can go through the process of moving them and scaling them. And whenever you want to change the value of your goal text, you could just click on that T, and then you can come in here and just type in any number that you like. So go ahead, make your goals, make as many as you want. Don't feel limited to do 5. I shall not deny you your artistic vision. And then we will reconvene in a little bit.
Yeah. So just to kind of go over those steps again, and I'll have these steps up here. The first thing should be taking the whole play area and either doing command or control. Thank you, Thomas, for putting it in the chat. For Mac users, it should be command and not control. To duplicate, so D for duplicate. You're going to rename this object to goal, resize it, and then take the top box and rename it to either trigger or to goal. Oh no, the object is called goal, my bad. And the top object will be called trigger. More importantly, once you select that object itself, you're going to go to the mesh render and disable it, which again, this is going to make it so that you don't see the box, just the actual trigger area will exist in Unity. And if you hover over it, you'll see a green outline. And then make sure that you have select the trigger object and make sure that it does have its trigger on its box collider. And then to let players know what the score is going to be, you can right click on this object itself, right click, go to hierarchy, 3D object, then text mesh pro. You can customize your text. Right now, you should probably be looking at centering it, whatever the value is going to be for that particular goal. And then you can go ahead and create a group object by right-clicking in hierarchy and going to create empty parent on the object itself. Again, there are other ways of doing this. You can also go to the create button at the top of the screen of hierarchy and click game create empty, and that will also create you an empty object for you. And remember, you can make as many as you want, though probably a minimum of 5. But it's super fun. I'm glad that people are following along. Is there a reason for not using Canvas? Because we're going to use that in a little bit. So there's 2 different types of text mesh pros. So I'm glad someone pointed that out. But there's 2 types that we're going to be using this time around.
Yes, indeed. We are actually using we aren't using a UI here. We're using a 3D text, and it's a little complicated to get into like the big reasons behind it. But the simple one is that we're actually using the 3D text version of Text Mesh Pro. But yes, and sorry, I'm here in the background, desperately making my area cool. It's not going to be as cool as your guys's, but I'm trying.
Yeah, super fun. And if anybody wants to make it spicy later on, you guys can also change the colors so that it's a little bit more player friendly, so people can see what the colors are. But don't feel free. Is Text Mesh Pro easier to do in VR as well, or Canvas can still be usable in VR?
So Text Mesh Pro is available in just the regular UI, and yes, it is recommended. Text Mesh Pro is notably higher quality as far as like the cleanliness of the font. As a matter of fact, in VR, we exclusively recommend using Text Mesh Pro versus the default Unity text, which is on its way out anyway.
Make it look pretty. Make it look high quality. Super cool. Yes. And as usual, I would say give us some emojis when you guys have caught up.
Yes. We're starting
also,
to get... Mm-hmm. Oh, no, I was just saying...
I was just going to mention that if you would like also any 3D pros out there, shortcuts Q, W, E, and R are your tools. Oh, and T are the Unity tools at the top left. So if you feel easier just pressing the buttons instead of going up and down, you can also do that. Q is going to be what's going to let you move around. Yeah, QWERTY. W is going to be your move tool. E is rotate. R is scale. T is rectangle tool, correct? Or transform tool? Yes.
Well, transform tool. It's the rectangle tool.
Rectangle tool. And then Y is all of the things. If you want to get super spicy there.
And I guess very apt. Like, why are you using this tool?
Yeah, why? For why? Also, another cool thing is if you're having trouble with 3D space, you can always put it this way. X will always be red, so that will always be your left and right. Green will always be Y, which is your up and down, and Z is forward and backwards, which is blue. So very, very cool. If you don't know that, first time dealing with 3D space. Also, yellow will be the one that you have selected. So very, very, very good.
Indeedy do. Indeedy do.
Let's see, let's give people how much more time you want to give.
Let's give them, how are we feeling? I saw a couple emojis, but let's give them another minute just to make them comfy. And just as a side note, like as you guys are going through this, you've already learned how to make materials. Don't feel limited by the fact that I'm not making extra materials. If you want your goals to be different colors, make them different colors. The world is your oyster.
Be free.
Be free.
Be free. Be creative. Enjoy it. Make this your own because you're following us along, but this is, for some people might be the first game that they ever make.
Mm-hmm. And the power is in your hands.
Power. Ultimate power.
Go. Excellent. And you'll just give you another 30 seconds and then we will start moving along. As you can see on the screen, I have completed my personal masterpiece. I have changed the scale on some of my goals. So the 100 is much narrower, but slightly taller. I can tell you from experience that that's not giving them the advantage of being able to get into the thing, but it looks more dynamic. And you know what? Just for funsies, I'm going to create another material just to reiterate the fact that you guys can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Material. I'm going to call it goals.
And also, if people want to edit their goals a little bit more precisely, you can also change the numbers in Inspector.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I'm the kid who needed everything to be the certain numbers that were all the same numbers. So if you are like me and you want to type stuff out instead of using the tools, use the tools to get a general sense, but then round up and down because you don't like how the Inspector looks, you can do that.
Absolutely so.
Thomas says make it purple.
Make it purple? What value should I make purple, Thomas? Oh, I can't hear Thomas.
I'm looking at chat, so I'll let you know.
I'm just sitting here like, Thomas. You know what? I'll make them all purple. There we go. Because we can change it.
Thomas said make the walls purple.
The walls purple? Okay. Let me set this back to... Am I going to make a really ugly play area? Ooh. Is that what's happening? Ooh, are we making something ugly?
Okay. We're making plays. We're going plays. We're doing it.
Purple. 11. I'm going to make it kind of a lavender because I don't want to, hate looking at this all the time. Oh, that's really... You know what? I'm going to make this darker. Doop.
Wee.
Doop. Doop. Now everybody's going to... God, if anybody comes in here late, they're going to be like, who is this person and why is she not a designer? What are these colors? I'm going to make this, really matte. There we go.
Yeah.
Somehow making it matte has justified my... my color choices? No.
Art.
No. Art. And you can see that I actually made this.
Someone says this is giving Barney the dinosaur vibes.
Oh wait! Yes! This is it. This is the Barney Pachinko game.
This is a throwback to today's theme is dinosaurs, what I'm hearing.
Yes. Everybody do the dinosaur. Okay, so there we go. Hopefully you've had the opportunity to add your goals. If not, you can keep working on this. As a reminder, this is going to be recorded so you can go back and watch our antics as many times as you like. Mild regret. No, I regret nothing. So as a reminder, we've done something that we're presumably proud of. And what do we do when we're proud of things and we don't want to lose them?
Save it!
Control S, we have saved. All right, safety has returned. Now, it's been a little while since we have play tested our scene, so let's go ahead and press play and observe the wonder. It falls! A goal! And am I going to see the test? No. So I am going to, for the sake of example, point out a minor thing. Now, in previous tests, I was actually able to align this properly, but I'm gonna fudge things because there's a problem here. If our ball drops, it is possible to... It's possible for a ball to fall out, but of course it never will happen correctly in the live version because why would it? But there's a risk, she says, aggressively shoving the ball outside of the play area to show off the fact that if your ball is not perfectly aligned, it can actually, fall out of the play area. So we need to do something about this. I'm going to just quietly scooch my ball back in the play area because it could fall and roll. It just, of course, isn't happening right now. But the point of this is that right now we're doing some risky business by having our play area be open. Because the next step that we're going to do is we're going to create our obstacles. And with our obstacles in the way, our ball can definitely bounce outside of the play area. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a cover to our play area to prevent that from happening. Now, we already know all of the stuff that we need in order to create a cover. So we first need something that's the same size of our play area, and it just so happens, look, the back It's the same size of our play area. So let's go ahead and duplicate this. I'm immediately going to come to the inspector and I'm going to rename this to front. And I'm just going to use my move widget, hitting W, and I'm going to drag it forward. And behold, our game is safe. Nothing will escape, including our ability to actually enjoy the game. That won't escape either. So let's go ahead and actually make it so we're making use of this collider, but not seeing it. And we know how to do that because of what we did with our trigger. We know that a mesh renderer turned off makes our object invisible, but we could see that our collider is still in place. And because we are not setting it to trigger, we're using it as a blocking mechanism, then now there's no risk of our ball falling out. So now we have our safety set. So now that there's no more risk of our ball dropping out of our play area, let's talk about obstacles, because obstacles are fun. They're what makes this game dynamic. Otherwise, this is a very boring Barney game, apparently. So we're going to create 2 obstacles. These are just going to be the things that I do in the demo. You can create any shape you want. The skybox is the limit for you.
Hey.
So I'm just going to demo 2. Let's start with our classic peg. So I'm going to come into the hierarchy. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to 3D object. And this time we are going to select cylinder. And that's going to create a cylinder for us. Oops. And I'm going to immediately name this in the inspector peg. There we go. And I'm going to hit F to focus in. Behold, the mystical cylinder. Mystery of all things. Actually, it's a fairly common shape. If you have a soda can nearby, you know what a cylinder is. Moving on. So we have used our move tool. I just moved it right now. We have moved our scale tool. Woo. The last tool and the last set of details within our transform component is rotation. I'm going to hit E on the keyboard to get to our rotation tool, and it is a series of circles color coordinated to the axes in 3D space. And I am going to just drag this down until I could rotate my peg. And as previously mentioned, if you are a stickler for round numbers, you could actually just come over here into the transform, and I could just manually type in -90 to get it to rotate exactly as it should look. But that completes the important trifecta of move, rotate, and scale. Again, as a reminder, that's W, E, and R on the keyboard. So with the peg rotated, I am going to add another material for it. So I'm going to go into my materials folder. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to create. I'm going to create a new material. I'm going to call it peg. What's another Barney color? I feel like I need to stay on theme.
Green.
Green. Dinosaurs are green. There we go. And drag and drop onto the peg. And let's make it a little bit darker. There we go. And then make it matte as well. There we go. Okay. So the peg is going to be reused a lot throughout this. That's one of the major features of this pachinko style game. And that brings up a very interesting point about game objects in Unity and their reuse. We duplicated a bunch of our play areas in order to make goals, and that worked out great, but those were finite. We're just going to use 5 of those. Our pegs, on the other hand, we're going to be using a ton, like more than 5. And it can be really annoying because if you've gone through the process of adding a bunch of pegs to your scene, you know, on the surface you think, oh, this is perfect. But then what happens if you decide, you know what? These pegs should really be a lot smaller. Well, now you have to do that across all of the pegs that you made, and that's kind of an annoyance. Again, if there's just 5, that's one thing, but imagine there are hundreds. That's a real pain in the butt, having to go to each one and changing the size. Fortunately, Unity has thought about that and has created a sort of templated object that allows us to make one and then be able to make changes to that one and have it propagated around to all of the others. And this type of object is called a prefab, or short for prefabricated object. It is a template object. And I'm going to highlight for you why this is so awesome. Prefabs are another object that we create down in the project window. So that means it's time for more organization. So we're going to go to the assets folder. We're going to go to right click, create folder. I'm going to call this prefabs. That's prefabs. We go into it. Unlike other objects where we right click and go to that create menu, we actually just drag and drop our object that we want to make a prefab into the prefabs folder, and voila, it becomes a prefab. You'll notice that in addition to existing in the prefabs folder, our peg up in the hierarchy has turned blue. This is an indication that it is now a prefab. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before, where I'm going to duplicate the prefab a bunch of times. If I could select it, that's asking too much of me clearly. So look at all these prefabs. Look at all those chickens. Okay, so now I have created my board full of pegs, and oh no, they should really be much bigger. Well, I just went through and, well, what am I going to do here? I need to make all these changes. If we go to any of the peg prefabs, you'll notice that there is an arrow to the right. If we click on this arrow to the right of any one of these prefabs, it doesn't matter which one, it'll gray out everything except for the prefab. And now, if we make changes, it'll automatically propagate across the board to all of the other prefabs. Like a miracle, yay! And then when you're happy with your changes, you can go back, and there you go. But, Joy, you say to yourself incredulously in the middle of the night when there's no way I could possibly hear you, I made a change to my prefab when I wasn't in prefab edit mode. What value does it have? I've ruined everything. How could I possibly save myself? And I will answer into the dark quite easily. If you change something that's not in edit prefab mode, you can actually come over here into the inspector, locate the overrides dropdown, and choose apply all. And then all of the changes will be applied to your prefab. And in the same way, if you, in the middle of the night, it's 3 a.m., you're working on your game project, you make a change to one prefab, and then an hour later you realize, oh no, what have I done? It's been far too long. I can't undo that. How can I possibly fix this prefab? Do I have to delete it and add it in again? No, friends, you do not. Return to the overrides dropdown and choose revert all to return your prefab to the version that is saved. And that is the wonder that is in prefabs. Once again, on a scale this small, it may not seem that exciting, but believe me, when you're 4 hours into a game and you have 360 prefabs that are very complicated on your screen, you want this. It's a really good thing to have. So, that is the wonder of prefabs, and that is the first obstacle you're going to create. I'm going to very quickly show you the other obstacle that I'm going to add to the sample before turning you loose, and that is a slide. So I'm going to right-click. I'm going to go to 3D Object, add a cube. I'm going to name it Slide, and I am going to scale it out and then make it skinny, and then I am going to put it against the wall and add a new material. What color should I go this time?
Black.
Black for the eyes. I don't know.
I'm running out of colors that Barney has on Barney.
Somebody look up the Barney Wikipedia. What color should we work with? Okay, there we go. There we go. And then I'm going to go to the prefabs folder, make them a prefab, and there you go. These are your prefabs. You are not limited to these shapes. These are just the ones that I suggest. Now, the last thing that we're going to do before I turn you loose is remember, we keep things organized here in Unity Land. So we're going to select our peg and our slide. We're going to right click, create empty parrot. We're going to call this obstacles. And there we go. Now, anytime you duplicate a peg or any other thing, it's going to be within that group. So things are going to stay nice and clean. So go, friends, make your game boards, make them dynamic. And I will also do the same in the background as we go to the instructions.
Right. So again, just a little reminder of every step that we took at this point. We created a front panel by taking the back part of the play area, duplicating it, turning off its mesh renderer, and then moving it so that it kind of fits on like a lid to this box. We created a cylinder, we named it PEG, and then turned it into a prefab, which prefab again stands for prefabricated object, which is going to allow us to edit it around if we need to, instead of having to individually change all of these pegs if there's ever any change that we need to do to it. Same thing, we're also creating a cube, calling it slide, and then adjusting its scale. And also turning that into a prefab so you can change it. You can make whatever you want for your board, however you want. I would say probably at least like 10 up top, 10 down bottom is your minimum with your pegs. And then maybe 2 slides. If you want to get crazy, do a whole bunch of other slides, you can do that too. Go crazy with colors also. Obviously, our theme is dinosaur. You can make your theme whatever you want. But yeah, and let us know if there's any issues. Also, very, very, very important to know is that prefabs are your best friends, especially as you get into using your final objects in your game. Obviously, when you're white boxing, which is creating like a prototype for your game, you can just use the Unity primitives, which are these different shapes. So totally up to you which ones you want to use if you want to try using some other stuff. But all of the tools that you can, all the setup you want to do for your level, you can do it with the Unity primitives, and it's going to be so easy to help you visualize what your game is going to look like.
Yeah. Really, yeah. Wait till you guys see what I'm up to.
I'm so excited.
It's the most deluxe version I have made. I don't even know. Like,
the
this
preview looks amazing.
Yes.
Super excited. Also, I'm happy with all of these. I don't know why we end up on Barney. That's so good.
That's the wonder of the live workshops. You never know what's gonna happen.
Never know, and it could be different all the time. I would also recommend people to check the spacing between your pegs while you're doing this, because if they're a little too narrow, the ball will get stuck and it will never go down. So just make sure that there's enough space for it to bump stuff, but also for it to move forward, because I made the mistake one time and it kept on getting stuck on a slide. So
yes, very true. I definitely did that a lot myself as well. And now I'm like suspicious of my pegs. I'm like, wait, did I add
trust
enough?
These?
I'm just coming at it like sneakily.
Just sneak. Sneak. But anything you make is art, so it's good.
It's true.
You can also, if you challenge yourself, make a shape out of it.
Yes.
Yeah, make your pachinko board look like, I don't know, like Space Invader.
Yeah.
The Unity logo.
Oh. Which one?
Oh, okay. Correct. Yes.
Hashtag timely.
Timely. Yes.
Put a bird on it.
New logo.
Yes.
Put a bird on it, someone says.
I think that's always the correct answer.
A bird?
Anything.
Word?
Yeah, bird is the word. I believe that there is a whole documentary about the fact that the bird is the word in musical format.
Shocker.
Bird.
Oh my god, I'm so excited with yours.
It's definitely like, also I'm trying to like, this is like digging way deep into the fact that I am very much a capital N like nerd, but if anybody's familiar with like Neon Genesis Evangelion,
yeah,
I kind of
it is 02.
Yeah,
1, so 2.
Yeah, I think it's so too. But yeah, so anime nerds represent. We can think about this multiple ways.
We're doing this.
Yes. But yeah, so this is where a lot of the fun comes in. We've been doing a lot of the prep, and obviously there's been a lot of generalized introduction into how Unity works. But once you get past that initial learning curve of getting comfortable in the editor, it really just starts being an opportunity for you to have fun. And I think that's why I enjoy Unity so much, is that after a while, it's just the opportunity for you to just mess around and make funny things, because there's no law that says everything that you work on has to be serious. As a matter of fact, if that was a law, I would be in prison by now.
Totally. There's so different. And whenever I think my favorite is whenever I introduce my students to 2x3 layout mode, and they were so used to using default, they looked at me like I was like a 3-headed monster. They're like, what why would you do that to yourself? And I'm like, because I started in 3D. And it makes me feel safe, okay? Don't judge me. No one judges you here. Do what you want to do.
Well, I mean, if you want, you could be a chaos agent and do a 4x4 split.
Okay, we're not there yet.
I wouldn't recommend that for anyone. Like, I understand. There's room for everyone and every need in Unity, but just looking at 4x4, it scares me. I'm gonna go.
It calls to the 3D modeler in me for sure.
Oh yeah.
But the game dev in me prefers 2x3.
Yeah, if you want to know what it would look like if
In
Unity and
every-
Maya just like boom, then yeah, that's for you. But
yeah, it's for. Listen, live your life. Live your life however you want to.
live boldly.
Bold.
Live chaotically, honestly.
Chaos.
That's what this
Yes.
is coming down to, is just chaotically.
I need a chaos alignment of all of the views in Unity.
Oh god, absolutely yes. Oh, cool. All right, so let's get some emoji into the chat. How are we feeling? Do we want to reveal my masterpiece? Do we want to move on to the next step? Throw up some happy emojis when you are ready to proceed. Ooh, there's the bird. Putting the bird on it. Thumbs up.
Bird.
Clappies.
Clip.
Oh, friends. Yay.
Hey.
That's another thing, too. Look at all the friends we have here.
Friends.
Quarantine what? We're all coming together and doing fun, nerdy Unity stuff. I love it. Yay. Cool. Yeah. Behold.
Look at that.
The wonder that is the Barney or the Ava.
Also,
Pachinko
correction,
game.
it was 01, not 02.
Oh,
02
no!
was the red one.
What have
01,
we
I was
done?
wrong. I was wrong. My nerd apology.
No! Hold on to the card. It's just a stamp against it. You don't have to give it up.
Okay, thank you.
Ah! One way or another, it's still a really cool scene. Okay, cool. So we have our stuff. Now let's go ahead and be sure to come in and save. Here we go.
Control S or Command S or file and save, whichever one you want. Live your
Any
life.
of those ways. Whatever you're most comfortable with is the correct answer for you. So now let's go ahead and play test and see what we've got going on. This is also the point where we find out if my ball could actually fall. Okay, good. I had this moment where it's just gonna like, but there we go.
Did we
so
forget something?
Yeah, down it goes and into 25. Yay! So our ball falls. It functions. It's just that you may have noticed that it fell a little bit unexcitedly. It was more like a whap. I guess I'll fall through. Whereas in the demo, there was a lot more excitement. There was more dynamic nature to it. And the reason for that is we added something to the player that we're going to add now. And that is something that defines the physicality, the material physicality of our sphere. So I'm saying the word material, and I don't want to confuse you with the surface material. We're instead going to be looking at a physic material. And this is going to be the thing that defines the physical nature of the material of the object. So is our sphere made of stone? Is it made of rubber? Is it made of glass? I really hope it's not made of glass. That would be problematic for our game.
Oh.
But in order to do that, we're going to define that, we're going to create a component that we're going to add to our sphere collider. You'll notice that there's a slot for a material, and it's looking for something called a physic material. So we're going to create one of those, and we're going to toy around with it. Now, in larger productions where there's going to be a lot of physic material, I would say create a dedicated folder, but we're only going to have one, and we already have a folder called material, and I am very lazy, so we're going to commit a little bit of an atrocity, and we're going to stick our physic material in the material folder. So I'm going to right click in the material folder. I'm going to go to create, and I'm going to come down all the way nearly to the bottom, maybe bottom quarter, I don't know, near the bottom. And I'm going to select physic material. And I'm going to call this player. And it's going to be really easy to tell the difference. We're not going to get any confusion because the player physic material icon is a little tennis ball bouncing on a plane, which is suitable because I want some bounciness going on here. So with the player selected, the physic material player selected, I'm going to come over here into the inspector, and you'll notice that there are a whole bunch of interesting things that we could play around with, but I'm just going to set the bounciness to 1. Feel free to play with these numbers and do whatever you want. There's plenty of room for experimentation here, but I'm just going to set the bounciness to 1. Then I'm going to reselect the player in my hierarchy, and I'm going to drag and drop the player physic material into the material slot of the sphere collider. And now when I play test, holy dynamic, Batman! That's completely different than it was before! Yay! So now it's really bouncy. And it's still going to go into 25, but it started at the same position. It's fine. But look at how it's bouncing and being all cool now. So I really like that. I'm going to stick with that. But again, feel free if you want, play with these different numbers, see what happens. So go ahead and create a physics material for your player and then apply that to the material section of your sphere collider. Off you go. Create more dynamic nature to your game.
Yeah, and I think we didn't mention this with the rigid body, but you can also change that around so that if you want to, at some point simulate different types of gravity in your games, you could do that. But for right now, for the physics material, really what we're going to do, we're going to create it in our material folder because we are not committing an atrocity. We're optimizing space.
We're optimizing space. I love it. Yes.
Look at it differently. You're fine. We're going to set the bounciness to 1 because we really want it to be bouncy, and then drag and drop that onto the sphere collider, collider for the player. There we go. That's the words that I was looking for. I know how to words. Again, make sure you don't apply it to other stuff, or do. I mean, if we want to create other bounciness, like create different types of bounciness for your pegs, and then we'll really get going. But right now, just apply it to your player so that it simulates what pachinko balls go. Peek, peek, peek.
Yep. They go ding, ding.
Oh, now I need that noise now.
Ding, 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 ding.
It bounces.
In the advanced version of this workshop, in some theoretical future, what we could do is just add sound effects that we record ourselves.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Ding, 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 ding.
Taking requests now for the types of sound effects you would like Krystel and Joy to make.
I've always wanted to make a game where I make all of the sound effects like myself, not like with any like software or anything, but literally like boing.
I think my explosions I would not be able to, so I'd just be like, it goes boom.
That's literally it. Like somebody throws a bomb and then the bomb just says, "Yeah, I explode."
I exploded.
That in itself is interesting design,
right? That would be some like Stanley Parable level of like reality breaking. Yeah, I appreciate that. Onomatopoeia Adventures.
Yeah,
I love the headband wings. Thank you.
Yeah, those are very cool. Do you have a 3D print? Like they look 3D printed? Is that right?
They are, yeah. It's just a Etsy shop I purchased from. My children call me Angel Mom or Chaos Mom, so I have the wings to represent that when it happens. That
is most excellent. Yes, I love 3D printed stuff. I actually I was fortunate. Maybe fortunate is not the right word. I was encouraged and was lucky enough to buy a 3D printer, and now I just 3D print the most unnecessary things in my life. As a matter of fact, the statue in my background is one of my 3D prints. It's a lot of fun.
I don't know if it's unnecessary other than it is serotonin embodied.
There are a few things more entertaining than watching a 3D print be created.
That's so good.
A+. Yes.
And we're back. Hello.
Oh, yes. I saw a question about missing a little bit of the presentations on whether or not these recordings will be accessible. And Thomas actually pinged in, but I just want to say it for the group, is that these recordings will be on the platform starting tomorrow. So that's really great. That's when you can go in and rewatch the antics that we've gotten up to today. So, yeah.
And there is closed captioning also as well. So you can see
I apologize in advance. I feel like I am a very difficult person to close caption or subtitle for, so
I'm just excited that it's going to capture me going, woo!
Oh man, that's right. Can you imagine there's going to be a closed caption, or a subtitle rather, where it says, and then the bomb says, "Yeah, exploded."
Reconsidering my entire life choices, but cool.
See, this is why I never took the streaming route. I feel like I am not mature enough to be in front of public at all times.
That's what makes it fun, though. Just being silly.
Well, fair enough. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's see some emoji in the chat just to confirm that we are ready to move on to the exciting next part, which is where we're going to finalize the visual aspect of our game. Believe it or not, guys, we are very nearly done.
So close.
I see some fire.
Fire. It's like the ear is on fire.
Ear fire. Oh, thumbs up. Yeah, 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 yeah. This ear is on fire. Oh, great. No, that's also going to be captioned. This is
Perfect.
good.
Could not
Excellent.
have it any other way.
All right. I think we are ready to move on. So if we go into Control S to save, if we go into play mode really quick and we observe the game, aside from the very dynamic and interesting color scheme, the only thing that's missing from the sample that we saw was the score. So that's the last visual aspect we need to add before we just add in the scripts and call this a day. So let's go ahead and create the user interface. So somebody had asked about this before, and the fact that we were using TextMesh Pro for our 3D text. Well, now we're going to use TextMesh Pro for our UI. So our user interface is going to be something that overlays on the camera. So it's a little bit different than the 3D objects that we've been working with before. So in the hierarchy, I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to UI. And then I'm going to select the second option, TextMesh Pro. And it creates an object for us called canvas. That's going to be the thing that our UI lives on. And then we have the option to name this. Let's call this score text. There we go. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, what the heck just happened? I don't see any text. I just saw this yellow thing. So what is this? If I hit F on my keyboard, it's gigantic. What on earth has happened here? It's too big. Rest assured, it is an illusion. Because if we go over to our game tab to preview what our game looks like, oh, that's nice. It's fine. It's right over here. And the reason why we're looking at this discrepancy between the game view and the scene view is because, again, it has to do with the way that the canvas is overlaid onto the camera. So our text isn't actually really this big. So I find it easiest that when I am developing my UIs, I actually just preview it in the game view. Now, we can't move stuff around in the game view, but we can watch as things get moved around from the inspector, which is something that we could do with our score text selected. So with my score text selected in the hierarchy, I'm going to come over to the inspector and I'm going to go into the text editor. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to change this from new text, we hardly knew ye. We're going to change this to score, space, 0, because the game always starts with 0, so might as well start it out. And now I'm going to customize my text as I want. Again, I'm going to make it bold. I might up the size just a little bit. I'm going to leave the score white, but you could change the color if you like. And I actually like it left aligned this time, so I'm pretty happy with it. Now, it's just a matter of getting it to the upper left-hand corner. And if I go over to my inspector up top, you'll notice that rather than having a regular transform component, we have a rect transform component. And all this is just the transform component that's dedicated to placing our score text in the space of our canvas. So that's all. It's just a slightly different format, but it's just because it's within that weird new space that our canvas provides. Now, what's cool about the rect transform is that it gives us access to this little button right here, which looks like a little aiming device. But if we click on it, this rolls out, and this is a preset menu. So we could use this to change the position of different UI components, and it gets a little bit deeper than we're going today, but we're just going to take advantage of a little bit of a hotkey action. If you hold Shift and Alt on your keyboard, you'll notice that those icons change. But while holding Shift and Alt, if you click on the upper left-hand corner icon, wha-bam! Your score has moved to the upper left-hand corner of your screen, which is awesome. And now, if you want to fine-tune, you could do so using these values. Now, for me, I don't really like the score being right up against that edge, so I'm going to put my mouse over pause X, and I'm going to just left-click and drag, and it interactively lets me shift the text over. So I'm going to just adjust that, and then I'm happy with it. But feel free to adjust this and put this anywhere you want. So you could use the pause X and pause Y to change those values a bit. You don't have to have it in the upper left-hand corner. I just like it there. So go ahead and go through and configure the UI, the font, however you want. You can change the color and then change the position. And I will turn you loose to do that. And then after that, we have very exciting next steps.
Yes.
So off you go.
Yes. Here you go. So go ahead, go to hierarchy, right click on UI, select text mesh pro text, and then rename it to score. With the little anchor tool up in Rect Transform, you're going to click Shift and Alt, and click on the upper left-hand corner. It has a little yellow dot, and then you're going to adjust the pause X and Y as needed, and your font size and color if you want. We're 5 minutes.
Yes. Looks like we're going to get a little down to the line. We will make it. We'll absolutely be able to get your game published. I'm afraid we're not going to be able to do Q&A. I'm so sorry, you guys. But you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. I am Joy Horvath. I don't think there are many of us out there, so I'm easy enough to find. So definitely do feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or would just like to connect. I'm always happy to connect.
Yeah, same. Krystel Theuvenin on LinkedIn or Twitter at the Game Teacher One. Always happy to connect.
Somehow, Thomas, I don't think just searching for Joy on LinkedIn is going to work out. Oh, there you go. Proper link. Thank you, sir. Cool.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's me. I'm here. I'm only one.
You're at her acting like I wouldn't post a link.
Got us. You got our
Rude.
backs. You got our backs.
I got
Thank
your
you.
backs.
Thank you. Very much
All right.
appreciated.
Producer Tom, you may whisk me away.
And away he goes. All right. So, in the interest of making sure that these last steps are covered, I am going to just show you the last bits of setting up the scripts, and we will get this show finalized. So, back over to the editor. There we go. We are going to go back into the scene view. We are going to select our player. And we're actually going to make use of the scripts folder. So I'm going to come over to this new scripts folder. You'll notice that there are 3 scripts in here. And you know what? I'm going to bring my mouse over into the scene view and hit F just to focus on my player. And I am going to left click and drag the movement script right next to the add component button to assign the script to it. And now this script is asking for the bounds of the player area. And I just know that offhand because I'm the one that made the the player area. So I'm going to set the left area to -9, the right area to +9. So that's the boundaries of the player area. Let's set the speed to 5. And that leaves us to this last thing, which is a starting position, start pause. This is going to be where we want the player to go when they actually drop down in the game and then return back to the top. So we just need to create a little item that represents this position. And the easiest way to do this is just to right click over player. And we're going to go to create empty. This time we're creating a child of the player. I'm going to call this player pause. And then now I'm going to just drag this outside of the player. And what this has done is created an object that has the same location as the player. So now I'm going to reselect the player. I'm going to drag it into the player position. Boink. And we can play test the game. So now our player is moving back and forth. You could adjust that speed number if you like. I'm going to left click and it'll drop my player down. Exciting. And here we go. Come on, get down. We're working across the clock. And then it drops in. And now if we right click, it'll put us back right up top. And that's great. So the last thing that we need to do is adjust the score. And we're running out of time. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to very quickly just show you guys how to add in the score. And then we'll turn you loose so you can get on to the next stuff. So in order to add the score, we're just going to start by selecting the canvas. And we're going to grab the score script. We're going to left click and drag it. It's going to ask for our score text, which we created before. So we're going to left click and drag the score text. Boom. And then the last thing that we need to do is add this final point assigner script to the triggers. So in order to find all the triggers in the list, we could just type in the search bar in hierarchy, trigger. And then I'm going to left click and select all of the triggers. I'm going to left click and drag the point assigner onto the inspector. We'll skip the point assigner, point value here for a second. We're going to come down to score. If you click on the circle radio button, it's going to look for anything that has the score script on it, which is our canvas. Boop. There we go. And now our canvas is set up. The last thing we need to do is come down and assign the value of these triggers to each script. So I'm going to select the first trigger. This is for my 100 value goal. So I'm going to type in 100. I'm going to select the next one. This is 25. And select the next one. This is 50. And finally 25. And then the last one is 50. The clock here, and then I'm going to clear the search. We're going to press play and drop it down. Oh god, 10, 9, 8,
Oh, we can do this.
Oh, get down.
Just in time.
There we go. So there we go. Unfortunately, we ran out of time as far as going through the building process and at this point. However, just for reference, file, build settings, you just add it and then click build, and then you'll be able to save your game, and then it'll produce an exe or a .app, whatever you guys have for Mac. And there you go. Your game will be done. So sorry that we took it to the edge, but we got you through. You made the whole game.
You did.
Yay!
Yay!
We wish we had more time, but hey, at least you got through to the end. And hopefully this inspired you to realize that you can create, a lot of games very quickly with Unity. And all you need is just a little imagination in some direction.
Couple notes. Recordings tomorrow. Main stage is coming up. Don't leave yet. Y'all have a wonderful time.
Yay!